Lucky Boys Podcast.
Fast forward to now.
Yeah.
Things appear to be normalizing. I mean, before we went on, we were talking about how we both experienced some traffic today. First time in a long time. I mean, if you want to look at the silver lining in that, people are coming back out. Is the worst over, or are we still in a really bad position?
Depends how you define worst.
Worse than the beginning? Or
Like people dying, people like a pandemic.
So-
but the PTSD is happening right now.
Just in terms of the spread, I mean, there's an argument that the worst is over, and that's why a lot of people are coming back out. I mean, you see tons of people on the street with no mask now, right? Because they're lifting the mask mandates in a
there's
lot of areas.
tons of people without masks.
Without masks,
I get a little nervous,
right?
But, even though I'm vaccinated.
But then there's another side, and they may not be wrong, where they're saying the worst is not over. In fact, this is the worst it's ever been. So, and I thought you'd be the perfect person to ask.
Well, do you know what's going on in India right now?
Oh, I'm well aware of what's going on in India. I've actually tried to help facilitate a lot of these nonprofits and other companies to send supplies over there.
Taiwan. They're going through 700 deaths a day or something, 700 cases a day.
Mm-hmm.
They're
going through what we went through.
Right, and they haven't been vaccinated as thoroughly as we have. So it's like kind of flipped. We were watching them live normal lives last year. They're watching us live normal lives when they're on their lockdown. And it's scary to be on an island too, like kind of like Manhattan in the zombie apocalypse. So is the worst over? Depends on who you're asking, where you are. I mean, there's a relative of privilege. As also like, what do you define as worse? I mean, in terms of pure virology and infection, we have a vaccine now, so it can't be as worse as last year, because last year we had no information, no data, no idea whether it's spread by surfaces, not enough PPE, not enough funding, not enough staffing. People were laying off staff before pandemic was rolling around because they lost money from being told not to have elective surgery, so hospitals couldn't pay healthcare workers, so they laid off even more staff even before a pandemic came around to their zip code. So, and healthcare workers are dying unnecessarily, and other people are dying. We just didn't know enough, and we didn't have vaccinations. Now we have vaccinations. We have all this data. We know how to take care of it. We have a little more funding. We have PPE, but it's still people repeating the same behaviors over and over again to perpetuate this. And now we're seeing in India and Taiwan. It's kind of like, I guess you want to define worse than human behavior and entitlement, and the fact that people are not learning, or nor do they care. That's
humans, right? We have short-term memories.
That's the worst in a different sense. Or the worst about the people who are going to kill themselves. Trigger warning. Sorry, I'm going to pull that back. Trigger warning. With people who are going to, lose their livelihoods or end their lives prematurely because they felt abandoned. You're talking to a group of people, doctors, who are ending their lives at a rate twice the national average, even before a pandemic.
That's crazy.
So what do you expect is going to happen afterwards when we feel abandoned and lost our colleagues?
Right.
And we stuck it through because it's war. But then when we come back, think about how we treat our veterans, how the veterans, really endure after the war is over.
Right.
The war is never over.
So do you think this is going to be like a game of hot potato?
I hope not. I hope that, I also believe, that was very dire, by the way, but I also believe in the goodness of humanity, that we've always rose to the occasion. We created a working vaccine with a very low risk profile within a year, based on 40 years of research. Finally, it was prime time. It's kind of like electric cars. We had the technology for 40, 50 years, and only now the people are like, oh my God, it's good for the environment. And now people are catching on when it didn't in the 80s. These all gives me hope. Yeah, we had all this stuff already, but now people are buying in. People are buying into being more responsible and green or plant-based,
Right.
And these are all things that will hopefully answer your question on is it a game of hot potato, or is it finally taking the potato and burying it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just takes one of us to finally just say enough is enough, and with this end this cycle. So I'm holding out hope for that. I do see semblance of that. I think there's always an arc towards progress, but it's a progress of a stock market where it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, but it still always eventually goes up.
Yeah, I just read a report this morning on my way here saying that the second shot, primarily with young adults, now that it's available for 12 to 15-year-olds, and where they can experience heart inflammation on the fourth day during the second shot, mostly in young males. Is there any link between the COVID shots and heart inflammation?
They're being extremely careful, because you look at the numbers, the incidence of myocarditis, which is another word for heart inflammation, is exactly the same as the general population that's unvaccinated. So there's no increase in relative risk. They're just saying that because they're just trying to be hyper aware so that nobody can use it as a part of an anti-vax program. So they're just saying they're trying to beat them to the gun.
All right, so they're coming forward before somebody else can kind of
it's
take the
just
story and spin it.
It's like you hurt your partner. It's better just to be upfront in the beginning before they find out and that you're trying to hide it.
Right.
It's better just be forthcoming and before.
Right, because they're gonna be like, "Why are you hiding it for?" There's more to this.
It's the lesser of two evils. So, but if you really look at the numbers, it's exactly the same as a general population before the vaccine. So, is it something to be worried about? Now, think about the alternative. What if you catch COVID as a 12 to 15 year old? Your incidence of clots, heart inflammation, other sequelae, long-term COVID is way higher than the incidence of heart inflammation that self-resolves after getting vaccinated. So would you prefer the alternative? Now, if COVID was stuck in a different part of the world and it's not in New York or in the United States of America, it's like asking yourself to get a rabies vaccine. You love animals, I love animals. But do you need to get a rabies vaccine? Unless you're becoming a veterinarian, hold off until you actually get bitten by a bat or a skunk. Why not? But no, everyone loves animals. Why just vaccine everyone rabies? You know what? I don't see any anti-rabies vaccine campaign. But we don't have that privilege when it comes with COVID. COVID is literally everywhere. You cannot leave your apartment and still die of COVID. That's how my grandfather died. He never left the apartment and he's dead.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. And
So
we also knew a couple of people that never left their apartment
Yeah.
except to throw away the garbage.
Yep.
And they contracted COVID.
Somebody can cough in the hallway and they can step out the door after like 10 minutes later, somebody coughs in the hallway, not knowing it's been carpet bombed. And you're like, oh, I need at least, can I just like open the doorway to see like, you know, if the coast is clear so I can dump out my garbage as they open the door and they inhale it. You know, they don't know. That's COVID. You don't have that privilege to let COVID be another part of the world so you can decide what to get the vaccine. COVID is everywhere. So the risk reduction is, would you rather more likely get COVID and have a heart inflammation that's permanent for your child? Is that the best gift you can give to your child? Or the risk reduction by getting a vaccine that prevents COVID. And yes, it has inflammation, but it's the same as the general population before a vaccine, and it self-resolves. COVID does not self-resolve if you have long-haul symptoms.
Right.
So it's about risk reduction. You don't have that privilege to choose anymore. It's all around you. So now the only choice you have is whether to do right by someone considering the circumstances.